A lifelong student of elite performance with the passion and drive to help individuals and organizations maximize their potential, Tim Kight founded Focus 3 in the mid-'80s in Southern California. Following his freshman year at Ohio State, Tim transferred to UCLA to run track. It was there at UCLA that he witnessed John Wooden win his 9th and 10th national championships. This unprecedented achievement by Coach Wooden and the UCLA basketball team triggered a great curiosity in Tim as to what distinguishes elite performers from average performers, a quest he's been pursuing ever since. In the following years, Tim began observing, curating, and documenting the mindset and behavior patterns of elite performers. He ultimately discovered that elite performers think and behave differently because they've adopted a system. Now a question arose: what system actually works? Through diligent study and research, as well as application in the real world, Tim discovered the power of the performance pathway. Leaders create the culture that drives the behavior that produces the results. Tim then built actionable, high-impact systems for developing exceptional leaders, strengthening organizational culture, and equipping people to perform at their best. Please welcome Tim.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me in the great state of Wisconsin. I appreciate the weather. I flew in, I was in Southern California working with USC football, and then stopped in Denver to visit 2 of my grandchildren. And the joy of my life are my 4 grandkids. And real quickly, for those of you who are not yet grandparents, let me give you some coaching. Number 1, do not let your children choose your grandparent name. My kids chose for my wife Mimi, which was awesome. For me, they chose Pee-Pee. That wasn't going to work, so I overrode that and went with Grandpa. And so they all 4 of them now call me Grandpa because I insisted on that. So let me jump into this, and I want to take roughly an hour and share with you really 40 years of experience, 40 years of research, 40 years of doing this work on the front line of organizations and schools and athletic programs around the U.S. and some globally. And so what Kate talked about was this performance pathway, and this is where we start. What you see on that screen is the physics of my organization and yours. No matter what kind of entity that you're a part of, the physics of the performance pathway apply. And you heard Kate say it. Leaders create culture, culture drives behavior, and behavior produces results. That's the pathway. And to get a little bit better understanding, let's reverse engineer it. Look at it from right to left. And it teaches something really important about where results come from in your organization. And it says it comes from behavior, how people choose to behave. And by behavior, we simply mean what people do, what people don't do, and how well they do stuff. That's what we mean by behavior. The performance of your business rises or falls on how people behave. In fact, after 4 decades of doing this for a living, no question in my mind, the number 1 performance challenge in every organization, it's not strategy, not technology, not finance, not operational efficiency, it's behavior. And I fully understand how important strategy and technology and budget. I understand that stuff. I've got a company and those things are really important. But let's ask a question. What happens if you have an A+ strategy and B- behavior? At best, B- results, probably C+. You buy the best technology in the world, and you re-engineer your processes, and you got B- behavior. What happens? You're not going to get the positive ROI. How many people have to be in a bad mood for great process to go sideways? 1. By the way, how many people have to be in a bad mood for it to be an uncomfortable evening in your home? 1. Like our house, there's a rule. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. There's a corollary. If daddy's not happy, no one cares. But that's a separate keynote, right? But that shows us that we better have a system for disciplined behavior to execute our strategies. And I'll get into that system here in just a minute. And then culture's job is to drive the behavior that wins. Culture's job is not to make people feel good. Culture's job is to create an environment where people behave in a way that aligns with the strategy and the plan. Create, again, behavior that wins. If you ask for behavior in your strategy that is not supported by your culture, you will struggle to execute. Culture is a strategy execution driver of your business. It's not a feel-good bolt-on. It's not just a statement on the wall. In fact, if you've heard the term, how many of you have heard the term core values a bunch in your life? So what's the word core mean? Anybody know what the word core? Values are things that are important. Core is a modifier. What's core mean? Anybody know? Main or center is the idea, but not the literal meaning. Anybody know the literal meaning of core? What if I told you a friend of mine had a coronary bypass? It means heart, you know, because you've listened to the podcast. Shush, Pat, be quiet over there. It means heart. It means heart. So culture isn't culture till it goes on people's hearts, which is why most organizations do not have elite cultures, because it's a statement on the wall, not a belief in the heart. Does that make sense? And then leadership's job is to be the catalyst for the culture. Because you do not get the culture you proclaim, you get the culture you practice, promote, and permit. You must practice it as a leader, particularly when it's hard. You have to promote it as a leader, constantly communicate it, creatively, nonstop, relentlessly. And you cannot permit behavior that's not in alignment with your culture. Because if you permit it, you promote it. So the pathway is at work for all of us. Leaders create culture, culture drives behavior, and behavior produces results. All right, so let's jump in to the next step. Rule one, real quick. What gets your attention about this? When you hear this, what gets your attention? I know keynote's supposed to talk, but I like to communicate and dialogue. What gets your attention? What grabs you from this? What's that? Yeah, it's a flow to it. There you go. I love it. What else? What else gets your attention about the pathway? Yes, Ben. Yes. Correct. Yeah. I love it. There's an order to it. There's a flow, a critical path. Right? Yes, ma'am. So thanks for noticing that. So we call that the flywheel. And what that teaches, and it's continuous improvement or continuous decay. Either one. And it means this: behavior reinforces the culture that supports it, or that created it. So if you ask for behavior and then you permit behavior inconsistent with your culture, that inconsistent behavior erodes your culture. So that's where the flywheel's working against performance. If, on the other hand, you're getting the behavior from your culture and reinforcing that, then the behavior is what? It's strengthening your culture. So that flywheel is critical to the system. Thank you for recognizing that and seeing that. Okay? So all the pieces matter. One quick question. Which of the three is most important? Trick question. That's like asking, which wing of the airplane do you prefer at 35,000 feet? Can you afford to have a weak culture? Can you afford to have behavior that's sideways? Can you afford to have ineffective leaders? No, they all matter. They all matter. All right, so if you do it right, you get the top organization. You don't do it right, you get the bottom one. And those are two companies, two organizations with similar strategies, different cultures. One on top succeeds because they're in alignment around the standards of the culture. They execute their strategy. The one on top navigated COVID better. The one on top attracts or retains the best people. The one on top has a better balance sheet, has a better growth pattern. Now, I used to use Southwest Airlines as the example for the one on top. Not anymore. I think the new unspoken mission statement at Southwest is, we're not happy till you're unhappy. It's pretty rough. And so this alignment is hard to come by, and even better yet, that's a better description of it. The alignment doesn't mean uniformity. It includes diversity. Lots of shapes, lots of sizes, lots of colors in today's diverse, high-performance elite organizations. But they're all aligned around the common set of standards. We call this Be You, Align with Us. And little footnote, great cultures also clarify who doesn't fit. And it's not a moral judgment, it's simply an operational judgment. For example, if you get hired by Nordstrom, you'd better have an extraordinary commitment to customer service, because that's what they do. I mean, I shouldn't say this because Nordstrom calls me up and says, stop telling people this. They will take in return products they don't sell. Again, don't go out, don't take your tire to Nordstrom because I said that, right? But they're that committed. So if you don't have a mindset on the heart of that kind of service, you don't fit at Nordstrom. That's all that means. So we're after alignment around these core beliefs. So keep this in mind. Job skills rise no higher than behavior skills. I don't know if you've heard the behavior skill term, but I'm going to introduce it to you today. There's two skill sets that work in organizations, yours and mine. Job skills, which are the technical, task-specific things everyone has to do to get their job done. But there's another skill set that determines how well you actually apply your job skills. We call it behavior skills. You might have heard the term soft skills. Horrible term, by the way. We simply call it behavior skills. Things like self-awareness, thinking, decision-making, problem-solving, flexibility, ability to change and handle change, resilience, emotional management. Those are all behavior skills. So quick question. What skill set do most organizations hire for? Behavior skills or job skills? What do they fire for? That's a mistake right there. See that? What skill set do companies train the most in? Job skills. What causes most of the problems? Behavior skills. What are we doing? I like to ask the question, have you ever worked with somebody who was super smart and a pain in the butt to work with? Don't look around. I say that. Prior to COVID, I was in New York working with a big global bank, and we were doing a leadership development for them, and I had to slide up and ask that question, have you ever worked with somebody who's super smart and a pain in the butt, and everyone looked at the same guy? That was the funny part. Here's the non-funny part. I went to him at the break, and I said, hey, that was an interesting moment in our workshop. I said, are you comfortable being that guy? And he kind of laughed. Yeah, I'm a SME. I'm a subject matter expert, and I'm hard to work with, but they tolerate me because I'm so smart. I looked in his face and I said, can I ask you a personal question? He said, sure. Are you that guy at home? And tears start coming down his face. He said, which home? The one that I lost because they all left me because I was that guy? Or the one right now that I'm about to lose because I'm still that guy? I said, well, listen to the tools I'm going to share today because they don't just matter at work, they matter at home. Behavior skills matter every place. You've heard the term, wherever you go, there you are. That's how that works. So let's look at it in the organizational context. There's 3 layers of culture and strategy. There's the organization or your whole enterprise. There's your team, the department that you're in, and then there's your 20 square feet. We work a lot of football teams, and so there's team. At the top for a football team, it'd be team. You're on one of the units, right? And then your O-line, D-line, quarterbacks, linebacker, whatever, and then 20 square feet. So 20 square feet is a metaphor that describes every single person's sphere of control and ownership in your business. 20 square feet, it's a metaphor. It's not a physical space. It's not literally 20. In Europe, I don't even use square feet, I use metric. But it's a metaphor for your sphere of ownership and control. So here's a statement of fact. You control everything inside your 20 square feet. You control nothing outside. On the outside, you've got influence and impact. On the inside, you've got control. And I'm on this quest. I've been on it for 40 years, and I'm going to keep pushing on this. Own you. Fully own your 20 square feet. It's not just business. You got 20 square feet of the highway when you drive. You don't control anybody else's car. You control yours. You got 20 square feet of the airport when you fly. You got 20 square feet of the community where you live. You got 20 square feet of your friendships, of your family. So own yourself on the inside, and that's how you start to have maximum impact on the outside. And here's my concern. Having been at this for so long, I see a lot of people who are so fixated on frustrating things outside, they fail to own themselves on the inside. So here's a message. Please don't let the frustration on the outside diminish the fire on the inside. It is your job to bring fire to stuff in your life. Fire means energy. One of the most important decisions I ever made in my life was to untether my emotions from my circumstances. I remember as a kid, my mom used to always say, Timothy, no matter how bad a situation is, you could always make it worse, so don't. And then I was reading as a high schooler about physicians, and I read the Hippocratic Oath, and the initial pledge of that is, first, do no harm. And then I just started observing people around me. I noticed when things went bad, people felt bad and didn't act at their best. That people were circumstantially tethered. They were situationally addicted. And their emotions and their effectiveness was completely attached to their circumstances. And as a young person, I said, I don't want to... Oh, then I read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, in college. You know Dr. Frankl's story? Jewish psychiatrist in Vienna at the outbreak of World War II, and his wife was pregnant. And they were captured and incarcerated in the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. He never saw his wife again, and he never saw his unborn baby. They all died except for him. He observed himself, and he wrote a book about his experience in the concentration camps. And he has this statement in the book, lots of wonderful statements. He goes, they could take away my liberty, but they could never take away my freedom. And man's final freedom is the choice he makes of his attitude and response to any situation in life. And I'm a junior at UCLA, and I'm way too big for my britches, and I'm reading through this thing, and I thought I was tough, and I read this, and I go, oh my gosh, that drove me to my knees. He talked about the Jewish prisoners who didn't want to suffer the indignities and the horrors of the experiment, so they throw themselves in an electrical fence to commit suicide. I'm going, that would have been me. And so I began this quest. How do you get that kind of mental strength? How do you get that kind of internal courage to respond well to life's difficult things? And that's what this is talking about. 20 square feet. Everybody in your business literally owns their 20 square feet, whether they know it or not. And I believe one of your jobs as a leader are two things. Number one, own your 20 square feet, be elite in your 20 square feet. Number two, help your people be elite in theirs. That's our job as leaders. Pursue personal greatness inside your 20 square feet. And don't let the frustration on the outside diminish the fire on the inside. And then help people in your organization, on your teams, find their greatness. And I hope some of the stuff I share today will help. Now, inside our 20 square feet, we're going to behave one of two ways. There's a line in life. And above this line is discipline-driven behavior, and below the line is default. And I'll cut to the chase. Discipline wins, default loses. And you can see the description. Disciplined behavior is intentional, purposeful, and skillful, whereas default behavior is impulsive, on autopilot, and it's resistant. And a quick footnote, discipline does not mean punishment. It's Latin for learning. Student, it means. I know this because I took 4 years of Latin from Mrs. Winifred Drum, Worthington High School. And she was born just after the Earth's crust cooled, so she was really knowledgeable about a bunch of stuff. She walked into Latin class every day and say, Salve discipuli, greetings students. So discipline is something you learn for yourself. It is not something someone imposes on you from the outside. It's something you choose for yourself on the inside. It's chosen. It's basically you choosing to live your life according to principles that you've inscribed on your heart. That's what it means to be discipline-driven. Default is simply the absence of discipline. Impulse is undisciplined emotion. Autopilot is undisciplined habit. And resistance is the unwillingness to do the work to become best version of you. It's getting stuck at something less than what you're capable of. Now, unfortunately, discipline is hard and default is easy. And there's a lot of social support for below-the-line default behavior. And again, there's this mission that I'm on, this mission that my organization is on, is to help people, organizations, and teams discover the power of attention, purpose, and skill, discipline-driven behavior. But it's chosen, not something that's imposed, okay? Now, the ultimate default behavior is something called BCD, right, Pat? It stands for blame, complain, defend. When things don't go the way we want, there's a tendency to blame other people, complain about stuff, and to defend our own default behavior. And folks, it doesn't work. In fact, I can say this. BCD damages everything that it touches. Everything. And it is a pandemic. And there's no vaccine for it. You better social distance from it. Because people who BCD, they recruit. They're recruiters. They're the chairman of the Fellowship of Discontent. They want other people to follow their BCD. But BCD does not solve problems, BCD does not achieve any goals, and BCD does not improve relationships. It damages culture, it damages sales, it damages efficiency, it damages relationships. It's toxic. And right now, social media is mainstream media awash with BCD. And my heart to yours, ruthlessly eliminate it from your life. It is not your friend. And may I suggest, instead of BCD, because the answer is not silence, by the way. Don't walk out of here thinking that I said the answer to BCD is just to keep your mouth shut. No, no, no. If there's a problem, put it on the table and talk about it. It's okay to say, that's on the table, and that's an issue, and I'm scared, or I'm frustrated, or I'm angry. That's okay. It's not BCD yet. Emotions involved, that's fine. Keep your emotion up here, not down here. Have discipline-driven emotion, not default. So 2 things instead of BCD. 2 things. If you do nothing else from today, you do this, this will change your life. 2 things. Resilience or resolution. When you're faced with a problem, no BCD, instead resilience or resolution. Resolution is go solve the problem. Solve it. Don't complain about it. Do the work. Most problems can be solved. So go solve it. Yes, but Tim, it's a really big problem. Yes, it is, and it takes a really big solution. Do the work. But not every problem can be solved. And so that's where resilience comes in. Resilience is the courage to navigate the discipline, to navigate life's intractable problems with a good attitude. In March of 2020, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Incurable, terminal cancer. My doctor, Dave's a friend of mine, did the biopsy, came back in the room, just tears streaming down his face, very upset. I said, Dave, stop. I'm smiling. I said, Dave, stop. I said, I know what to do. Let's not BCD about this. He goes, is that thing you teach? I said, no, it's that thing I do. I said, Dave, I've trained my whole life for this. It's a privilege to be chosen. I know what to do mentally. You show me what to do medically, and let's go do this thing. And that was 3.5 years ago. And my mantra is real simple. Cancer will determine when I die. It will not decide how I live. It's real simple. Not easy, but simple. No BCD. It's resolution or resilience. Okay? So let's get rid of any lingering attachment to the entitled mindset that we shouldn't have to endure or navigate difficult things or frustrating situations or irritating people. Again, my heart to yours. You are not exempt from life's hardships. You're not. When you experience adversity, please don't be surprised, be prepared. Do you hear what I'm saying? And I'll take it one more step. A little personal here, maybe it's TMI, but I just got my scans. I've got a whole bunch of new tumors that showed up. Which 3 years in, when you got stage 4 cancer, guess what? Guess what's going to happen? You're going to get more tumors. Zero surprise. I was completely prepared. My wife wasn't completely prepared. So we cried together. And then I said, sweetie, here's how this works. Let's go back. No BCD. He goes, I know, but it's hard, and it is hard. It is hard. But I said, hey, listen, cancer will take my life. Between now and then, we give it nothing. Today belongs to whom? Us. Like today belongs to us here. I get to be with you today. I think that's an awesome thing. I'm not worried about the future. I'm going to win today. Hope that makes sense. All right, so how do we do this? What kind of system do we use to be more up here, less down here? More discipline, less default. We call it the R factor. I've had the privilege of teaching this all around the world in all kinds of entities, and it's my heartbeat. You can probably feel the passion that I have for this. Here is the system. E plus R equals O. It stands for event plus response equals outcome, and it teaches us this. You do not control the events of life. You do control how you choose to respond, and it's your response that produces the outcome. Or to put it simply, the O you get comes from the R that you choose. If you want a better O, choose a better R. Events are things you have to navigate. It's the stuff of life. You get three kinds of events. You get helpful, you get neutral, and you get painful. And you get all three. Again, helpful, neutral, and painful. Some events are really good and easy. Some events are a lot of them just the average events you get in life. And some events you get adversity. And my whole point about that is you should be prepared for all three of those events. And your R is most important when the E is most difficult. When you get a difficult, my wife was great years ago when she was listening to one of the workshops or one of the videos that I had. She goes, yeah, small R's don't work for big E's. I goes, exactly right. Exactly right. And so you earn outcomes through the quality of your response. And think about how many R factor decisions do you make every day? Tons. And so every day you're deciding how to respond in pursuit of outcomes you want in response to events you're experiencing. And the quality of that response is ultimately the most important factor in the quality of your life. And your business runs on this. Every day, your employees, your associates make R-factor decisions. They navigate things. They have touch points with customers and touch points with clients. They've got to navigate change. They've got to do stuff, and they've got to execute. That's all R-factor. Your business performance stands or falls in how your people manage the R. And the O is just the numbers. That's the stuff they produce. So it's right smack dab in the heart of business performance, okay? So your R is the key variable. Like I said, want a better O? Choose a better R. And can you intuit? A disciplined R produces a very different O than a default R. That's our quest. That's our journey. So there's 6 disciplines, and I'll just do them quickly. This is R Factor Ultralight today. There's 6 disciplines that we need to master to be best version of ourselves. And this is a lifelong pursuit. R Factor I was sharing last night over dinner with Dan and with Kate. Wonderful people, by the way. Just wonderful people. They are married. They are husband and wife, as you didn't know that. I was a little disappointed Dad didn't say, my wife, Kate. So I wanted to jump up and say that, but now I got my opportunity to say that. Wonderful people. And so the 6 disciplines to how this works. And let me just go over them real quickly. Number 1, press pause. This is the gateway. The purpose of press pause is think to gain clarity. The purpose of it is be clear about the situation you're in and what you want to do. Because clarity of vision is what drives quality of response. Because it's just something that has to do with the way the brain works, the way the mind works. You're going to behave based on how you see. Perception drives action. If you have a clouded, distorted view, you're not going to have a great response. So greatness in responding begins with clarity. And it's hard to gain clarity. We don't always see things as clearly as we think we do. There's a lot of work that needs to be done around gaining clarity. So I like to take the system of ERO, press pause, and ask myself 3 questions. Number 1, what event do I have? Number 2, what outcome do I want? Then number 3, what response do I need? And then a sub-question, if I engage in that R, what's the likely outcome of that behavior on my part? Think about consequences. So this is unbelievably simple, incredibly rare, and profoundly powerful. E plus or I equals O. Adopt it as a lens through which you see the world. Before you take action, stop and ask yourself, what E do I have, what O do I want, what R do I need? And notice something. I'll go back. Unless you've clarified the E and the O, you are not in a position to choose the R. In fact, impulse is choosing the R without clarity. Because if you're not mentally clear, emotional impulse is going to hijack you. And so let's clarify the E and the O. And I've coached this for so long, and here's what I've discovered. A lot of times people don't want clarity, because they've got clarity about the O, their R would have to change. And so I've found myself in our coaching and my team, when we coach people, when we help them think this through, once they've clarified the E and the O, the R becomes pretty obvious what you need to do. But here's the challenge. Sometimes the necessary R is uncomfortable and something you're not good at. Sometimes the necessary response is uncomfortable and something you're not good at. Go do it anyway. It's how you get good at it. I was sharing again with Dan and Kate last night, a big, big thing for us. Embrace productive discomfort. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. That's why it's called uncommon. That's why it's called elite. Average people don't do uncomfortable things. Don't be average. And I'm right in the middle of coaching stuff, some football stuff, so I've kind of got the Coach Kight mindset here. Can I coach y'all a little bit? Everybody in this room, with very few exceptions, there's something in your life right now you need to be doing, but you're not doing it for one reason only. It's uncomfortable. You tried it, but it was uncomfortable, so you quit. And I'm here to tell you, go back to that thing, embrace the discomfort, and go do the work. And be relentless. And if you ask me, hey, TK, will it ever become comfortable? Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. But if it's uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable. Folks, listen to this. If you want the great things in life, you have to do the hard things in life. Greatness requires doing uncomfortable things. Now, if you don't want to be great, if you want to be common, you want to be average, you want to be addicted to mediocrity, don't listen to what I said. But if you want to be uncommon, you want to pursue and achieve best version of you, embrace the uncomfortable and go do the work. All right, number two, then we lead to this next thing. So once I've gained clarity, one last thing before that. The more you press pause and use the system, the faster you can do it. People ask me all the time, hey, Tim, what if I don't have time to press pause? It's not a matter of time. It's a matter of skill. It's a matter of skill. If you rep this and rep this and rep this, it's called rapid cognition, frankly. And there are professions trained in this. Combat pilots, commercial pilots, first responders, trauma surgeons, single moms of 5-year-olds. I mean, you can do this at speed, with skill, under pressure, but only if you're trained. Only if you're trained. The speed with which I got to no BCD, let's go do this with cancer, and I got to do it every day. I mean, you name the drug, I've gotten it. Chemo, radiation, the whole deal. All of it uncomfortable and fabulous. I embrace it all because I'm trained in this. And then number two is get your mind right. So the purpose of pause is clarity. Purpose of this is energy. Create your own mental energy because your life, best version of you, has positive, productive energy. So you have to learn how to create the energy. By the way, underscore the words create. You are in charge of your mindset. Create the mindsets that you need for the things that you face. Create it. The E will not create your mindset. The event, the situation will not create the mindset you need. You've got to go do that. This is my point about people tethered to their circumstances. Things are bad, they're upset. Things are good, they're happy. You are the plaything of circumstance if that's what happens. And so let's not do that, all right? So default emotion, the below-the-line emotion, here's why you don't want to get caught in the gravitational pull of default emotion. Number one, it distorts what you see. Number two, it disrupts how you feel. And number three, it limits what you do. And I could give you all the cognitive science reasons. I can give you all of the neuroscience reasons why, but do not live a distorted, disrupted, limited life. Just don't do that to yourself. My big message to people, don't lose to you. Situations in life are hard enough. Don't lose to you. Your number one competition for greatness is the person in the mirror. And if you're BCDing about somebody else or something in your life, jettison that and own you. And don't be distorted, disrupted, or limited, okay? So I can't teach all about our mindset cycle, but I'll give you one tip today, and that is this. Manage your stories and your self-talk. Master the art of productive self-talk. Emotion feeds on verbal input, which advertisers know. Visual and verbal input is what feeds your emotions. Don't feed emotions that undermine your effectiveness. If you talk to yourself negative, you will feel negative and you will underperform. I'm going to repeat what I just said. It's simple, but you got to hear this. If you talk to yourself negative about somebody or something, you will feel negative and you'll respond poorly. And blame them, when in fact it's a you issue. So master the art of productive self-talk. You literally are the author of the stories that create and feed your emotional state. And we have to awaken to the power of that. I've been practicing productive self-talk for many, many, many years. I do not talk negative to myself. Now, I don't lie to myself. I don't say, this is fantastic, when it's not. But what I do say is things like, that's challenging, that's painful, I'll go do the work. I embrace it. I tell the truth about the thing, I tell the truth about how I feel, and then I talk positive about what I'm going to do. And it is a superpower that you can learn. I would contend it's a superpower that you must learn. It's a game changer, okay? So think about this. The default-driven voice, got one of two voices in your life, the one down here, the one up here. A below-the-line voice and above-the-line voice. A default voice or a disciplined voice. This one down here is not your friend. Look what it says up there. The default-driven voice feeds disruptive emotion, it holds you back, and it shouts. You got to minimize it. Here's the one you want, the above-the-line discipline-driven voice. It feeds productive emotion, it empowers you, but it whispers. You got to amplify that one. So when you leave today, listen to yourself. What's going on in your head? What are you saying to you about stuff? And we were talking last night at dinner. One of the great places to immediately practice this is when someone tailgates you or cuts you off, when you're driving your car. How do most people talk to themselves, above the line or below the line, when they're tailgated? Below the line. What do they say? No swearing, please. They put themselves into a default emotional state and they react poorly. Brake check. Give somebody the I'm number one signal. Reach for your 9mm in your glove box. Now, we laugh, but it's happening today. And that's just driving your car. What voice do you use when you're in an argument with your spouse? Dan, be quiet. He was chuckling. I said that, and I thought, and I heard from Dan. He kind of chuckled. Well, I was with them last night for dinner, like I said, and there's no question. She wins all the arguments. No question in my mind. No question. So this is a phenomenal thing to think about. What emotions are you feeding through your stories and self-talk? Best version of you does not talk to yourself below the line, talk up here. Third, step up. So number one is press pause for clarity. Number two is get your mind right for creating and sustaining and cultivating a productive mindset. The number three is step up, and this is all about take disciplined action. Do what needs to be done. Step up. And here's the message. Your art must meet the demands of the situation. Go back to what I said and press pause. What E do you have? What O do you want? What's the necessary R? I love this question, that I ask this of myself for years and years. What does this situation require of me? Not how do I feel, not what's popular, not what's easy. I ask, what does this situation require of me? As a business owner, as a husband, as a father, as a grandpa, what does this situation require of me? And it's life-changing. And I think you got to step up to four things. So what I've discovered. Number one, you got to step up now. We call that win the moment. The only moment available to you to step up and take action is the moment you're in. You can't step up yesterday because it's gone. You can't step up tomorrow because it's not here yet. So the only time available to step up and act in the direction of your goals is now. It's called win the moment. But you got to be in the moment if you want to win the moment. And then secondly, you got to step up daily over time. It's not, winning one moment is that you got to win all the moments today as much as you can, and then tomorrow, and then the next day. That's called the cumulative impact of discipline action repeated over time. The cumulative impact of discipline action repeated over time. The aggregation of marginal gains, to use the term that they use in cognitive science. Thirdly, step up to the predictable. I love this. Step up to predictable events. Most of the events in your life are predictable. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And like I said earlier, when you experience a predictable event, you should never be surprised. You should be prepared. So for example, I could sit down with people in your company, particularly in any department, and we can map the events that department gets. We can map them. And then we can map the responses that we know work best, that are discipline-driven, and the ones that don't work, that are default-driven. You can map them. Just did this for an emergency department in a large hospital. We map the events that they get. And then we say, okay, what are default reactions that you engage in that don't produce the outcome you want? And they go, yeah, we do. Wow, why do we do that? Let's stop doing that. Let's step up from this to this. They went from default to discipline. You can do it in your own life. Again, I'll refer to one I just talked about. When someone tailgates you, that's a predictable E. What does step up look like? And it's not slam on your brakes. What discipline looks like, what stepping up looks like is move over. Let them go and give them the finger when they go past. I'm joking. So predictable. And then finally, the fourth thing to step up to is step up to adversity, which we've referenced already. Challenging, difficult, painful things are going to happen to everyone's life. And when it comes, you should be prepared. You shouldn't be surprised. You don't have to enjoy it, but you sure better be ready for it, okay? So I love to summarize it all this way. Work the process, invest the time, solve the problems. Stepping up means this. For every goal you have, there's a necessary process, there's a required time frame, and there's going to be problems. So stepping up means this. Work the necessary process, invest the required time, and solve the inevitable problems. There is no goal in your life when you don't have to do those three things. And the process, the time, and the problems scale with the size of the goal. If it's a really big goal, it's going to be a hard process, a long time, and big problems. That's just the nature of the world that we live in. Here's what elite people do not do. They don't resist the process, they don't resent the time, and they do not complain about the problems. I can tell you right now, you come to me and say, hey, TK, I've got this goal, personal or professional. Awesome. Tell me what the process is, what's a legitimate time frame to expect, and what problems can you anticipate and be prepared for. And that's what I would do with you. Tell me the goal. You tell me the goal, business or personal. Awesome. Now, what's the process and plan you're going to follow? What work has to be done? How long can you anticipate that will take, and what kind of problems you're going to meet along the way? There isn't a single goal you have where that isn't necessary. This takes the noise away, and it's just laser beam focus on what you've got to do over what time frame and what kind of obstacles you've got to navigate. Number 4. Now let me just stop. Are we good on this so far? Is this resonating? Making sense? Now this isn't, in the words of a former president, this isn't rocket surgery, right? I said that in Houston recently, and no one laughed. That's where he's from. All right, number 4, adjust and adapt. I think it's kind of intuitive at this point, because the R that you choose just may not work the way you anticipated, and or the E may change. So you better be very flexible. So you press pause for clarity, you get your mind right for energy, you step up for discipline action, you adjust and adapt to be flexible. Don't be rigid. Don't get stuck, okay? So success goes to those who navigate change quickly and with a positive, productive attitude. And you just don't have any business in 2023 being a change resistor. You just don't. And it's unfortunate. So most people resist change. My advice is don't be like most people. Be uncommon. What did I say earlier about stepping up to the necessary R that may be what? It may be what? Uncomfortable. And so for my next slide, what did I put up there? Yeah, I'll come back in a second. So here's the thing I want to say. I get it. You ask 100 people who likes change, only 5 raise their hand and 3 are lying. I get it. Change, people don't like change. I can't change the fact that people don't like change. But the problem is they've equated discomfort with stress. False equation. Change is uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be stressful. Change is uncomfortable. That's a fact. That's fixed. And what did you just learn today about discomfort? What should you do with discomfort? Embrace it. I think I got a slide on that coming up, right? So, basic is this. Do not let the speed of change around you exceed the rate of change within you. And that's the thing that we look for in businesses. That's the thing we look for in jobs. That's the thing we look for in people is what's changing in your environment? Are you changing? Are you morphing? Are you improving? Okay? So we got to be careful about that. So when change happens, you can be above the line or below the line, right? There we go. We're back to it. Look at the bottom. Look at the default. Will impulse autopilot resistant help you deal with change? In fact, I can tell you this. If you resist change, it doesn't make the change go away, but it sure makes it more difficult. Go back to what my mom said. No matter how bad or difficult a situation is, you could make it worse. So don't. So changes are going to be uncomfortable. Just embrace the discomfort and do the work. Again, I'm not saying it's easy. It's just necessary. But it becomes a habit once you get going on it. All right, number 5 is make a difference. So pause for clarity, get your mind right for energy, step up for discipline action, and be adjusting it out for flexibility. Now, number 5, make a difference. This is not about how what you do affects you. This is how what you do affects other people. So this is about impact. Your R factor is not just about you, right? Because your R is an E for others. I don't know if you've thought about that or not, but it's just the way the life works. Your R is an E for others. The way you respond affects the people around you, at work and at home. And so we got to be attuned to, we need situational awareness. How's my behavior affecting people? Those 3 ways then that you have an impact, 3 ways you deliver an experience, 3 ways that you make a difference to people. And that's attitude, action, and words. That every day you come to work or you walk through the door of your house and you have an attitude and people feel that. You have a mood. And if you're in a negative mood, you're in a snarky mood, you're in a cynical mood, you're in a distant, sort of disconnected mood, people feel it. Whether you know it or not, it's felt. Number 2, action. People see what you do and they see how you do it. And if you make a promise and don't fulfill it, if you don't follow through, you don't do your job, you don't perform at the level you need to, people see that and it impacts them. If you do follow through and you make a promise, you fulfill it, you speak with integrity, they experience that. That's awesome. And then the third one is words. And that is both giving and receiving. People are constantly communicating. Every day you have conversations. You speak and you listen. You speak and you listen up here with discipline, or you speak and you listen down here on default. And this version of you uses words wisely. This version of you uses words unwisely. Down here you talk about people. Up here you talk to people. Any gossip in your respective organization? Any gossip where you work? People gossip? Some of you are going, yeah. It's toxic. Doesn't work. And then a really hard thing about words, it's not hard to speak, it's hard to what? What's the hardest thing? Listening. It's really difficult to listen well. Number 1 reason why it's hard to listen well is we're listening to our own voice, not the other person's. So if you and I were talking and I'm a normal person, you're talking and inside my head, I'm framing my response. You tell me all about your Hawaiian vacation, and I'm thinking about something totally different. That's hard. That's hard. Raise your hand if you were born with world-class listening talent. Like from birth, you had elite listening skills, and when you got married, you got better. Anybody want to claim that? So it's a discipline-driven, learned competency. Now, notice the three things. I want to mention this about attitude, action, and words. Your credibility as a leader, all three must be in alignment. Your credibility as a leader is not about one or two of these, it's about all three of them. And notice, what do we do a lot of as leaders? Words. If what you say is not backed up and reinforced by your attitude and action, people will hesitate to trust you. If your words, the way you communicate, is not validated by your attitude and actions, people will hesitate to trust you. So we live in a time when this is even more pronounced. So let's make sure that we're paying attention to the attitude that people feel, the action that people see, and the words that people hear. Let's become discipline-driven, not default-driven in those three things, which leads to the sixth and final R factor, discipline, which is build skill, which no surprise. All of this, like I said, discipline means learning. It means student, and this is all, it's not natural, it's all developed, it's all learned. There is no R factor pill or injection. I've talked to Pfizer, and it's just not possible, okay? So, talent comes from genetics, skill comes from training. This is a really interesting statement. I don't know how much you've thought about this, but this is huge in my world because I help people get better by building better skill, and I help athletes and teams get better by building better skill. There's genetics, which is a gift. Then there's skill, which is developed. And a whole lot of people do not maximize their natural given genetic talent because they don't do the work. They train to the level of their talent and then they stop. They train to the level of their talent and then they stop. Why do they stop? Because building new skill beyond your talent is hard. And our watchword of the morning, it's uncomfortable. What elite athletes do, what elite people do, salespeople, service people, executives, managers, what the elite do, husbands and wives, moms and dads, is they don't stop at their talent. They build skill throughout their lifetime. And they embrace the hard work necessary to build next level skill. And the amazing thing about this relationship between genetics and training is you had no say on the talent you got at birth. That was out of your hands. You got as much as you were going to get, and you had no say in it. But you have all the say how hard you work. On that screen, talent's in a way irrelevant for you. You got what you got. You didn't get what you didn't get. So, where's all your power reside? Training. Everyday training. And so what the elite do is they identify the competencies that come naturally through talent and the competencies they need that don't come naturally, and they work on both. They maximize their talent, and then they keep growing. I gave you one a moment ago that none of us got genetically. Listening. I didn't get that gene. For sure, I didn't get that gene. But I've worked very hard at it, and if my wife were here, Brenda is her, used to be her name, we now go by our, well, like Mimi is, it's like so much fun. Grandpa, I just came from the two grandkids. It's just, raise your hand if you're a grandparent. I need to know, who are the grandparents out there? How awesome is it? How to explain how cool it is? I don't have the words for it, but it's pretty cool. But listening is not something that came naturally for me. And so I had to learn it. Of course, I had a little wake-up call. I'll never forget. I was living in San Diego, flew in from the East Coast, worked with Ernst & Young all week long, flew in from New York, landed in San Diego, 11 o'clock, last flight in because they closed the airport. Brenda pulls up the curb, 1988 Nissan Maxima, love that car. I sit down in the car, she starts talking to me about all the stuff going on with the kids and the family and the kind of stuff. And I said, whoa, stop. So you just tell me what happened. I'll give you the solution. This does not have to be a long conversation. It got frosty in that car. She turns to me and she goes, you know all that communication and teaming stuff you teach in business? I said, yeah, sure. Yeah. She goes, you suck at home. Well, me being the wise young man that I was, I told her why she was ungrateful. So when I got up from the couch the next morning, I went to breakfast with a friend of mine, Craig, Betty's Restaurant in Fallbrook, California, Huevos Rancheros, a cup of coffee. Every weekend, he and I'd have breakfast on Saturday morning. And I share with him what my ungrateful wife told me. He looks at me and says, well, funny you should mention this, because Leslie, his wife, and I were talking, and we agree with Brenda. You're not a very good listener. So you do it at work, you just don't do it at home. He says, TK, I love you, but man, you're a hypocrite. I thought to myself, I need new friends. I had a decision to make. Am I going to change and do the work, or am I going to get stuck at something less than best version of me? So I went home and said, babe, I'm sorry. We cried together, and I said, I'll go to work on this. And I became an elite listener. And it takes a hard, it's training. It's not genetics. And I got some natural talent in some areas, but I don't have talent in other areas. But I never stopped training. I never stopped training. So what do you need to do to train? You got to choose the right mindset, a growth mindset. We call it a get better mindset. You choose the mindset. And that is, you've got to decide if you're hungry or not, if you're humble or not. Because if you're not hungry to grow, if you're not humble, if you don't recognize that you've got gaps, you're probably not going to, that's the ignition. And there's some really good literature out there about this. If you've not read Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, I encourage you to read it. Or Dan Coyle's book, The Talent Code. Those are two really good books. Choose the mindset. Don't wait around to feel like it. You got to choose it and cultivate your desire to be better today than you were yesterday, better tomorrow than you were today. And then number two, you've heard it all morning, do the work. Do the work. At whatever particular skill element you want to get better. And then finally, be coachable. And we define coachability. Do I have this up here? Oh, I don't. Oh, coach, here's my definition. The eagerness to receive feedback and instruction without getting defensive and making excuses. The eagerness, passion to receive feedback and instruction without getting defensive and making excuses. And here's how you can start. Go to somebody at work who you know and trust and say, what's one thing I need to do better here? You know me, you work with me, what's one thing, what's a gap I have where I need to get better? And then when they give you the feedback, don't argue with them. Ask some clarifying questions, but don't argue with them. I'm not done with the homework. I'm going to do the exact same thing at home. And again, limit your spouse to telling you just one thing that you need to improve. Don't, if the list starts, say, sweetie, stop, just give me the one thing and I'll work on that one. And then but seriously, go home and ask those questions. And what you'll discover is, have you made the 3 commitments? Because if you don't have a growth mindset, when someone gives you feedback, what will you do? When someone tells you, hey, you need to get better at this, what's the average person do when they get feedback? What's the average person do? They get what? Defensive. Are you average? If you get defensive, you're average. If you're okay with that, okay, can't help you. If you don't want to be average, now you're going to feel defensive impulses. And what you need to do is use this system. When you feel the defensive impulse, press pause and say, well, wait a second. That's that default thing TK was talking about. I don't want to be defensive. I want to be receptive. I want to listen. Apparently, my behavior is affecting my colleague this way. Apparently, my behavior is affecting my spouse this way. Hey, I can be better. I want to be better. So that's the mindset. And then there's work to do, and then you got to get some help from the outside and be coachable. I can tell you right now, you do this, and you're going to be consistently on a pathway to better and best version of you. Okay? So this is a journey. It's not a program. But I want to finish with this. I want to ask this question, because I ask it all the time. Where do you tend to manage your R better, at work or at home? Don't answer it. Think about it. Where do you tend to manage your R better, at work or at home? Raise your hand if you think you tend to be better at work with this. Raise your hand. There we go. The vast majority of you. So, why do we give our families our R factor leftovers? Why do we do this? This is where I ask and you answer. Why do we do this? I'm sorry? Well, she said, our family can't fire us. My dear, you are wrong about that. And here's where I know this. I know this because when I'm 70 years old, so I've been around, but I said this once at this big bank thing I was talking about, and I asked the same question, and the guy says, you can't get fired at home. Guy next to him said, actually, I've been fired 2 times, he said. So we think that, right? You can get fired, you can get demoted at home, there are all kinds of things. You can get your pay cut at home. I mean, there's like compensation issues. Why else do we not do this? What's that? We're tired. What was the second R factor? Discipline. Get your mind right. What's it do for you? Energy. So here's this. What if you adopted E + R = O for your work life and your home life? And think about what I just said. Before you walk in the door in the evening, you're tired. I get it. I hope you're tired. If you get a whole day and you're not tired, go back to work. And so when you walk through the door, what if you did this? You press pause for clarity. You ask the question, what events am I going to get tonight? What outcomes do I want? What do I need to do? Get clarity. Number 2, get energy. What's your self-talk walking through the door? Oh, man, I'm so tired. I sure hope the kids don't want to play. Hope my wife doesn't want to talk. And if she does talk, hope it's not the same thing the last 3 times she talked to me. Or whatever it is. What's your self-talk? What do you say to yourself? What are you feeding verbally? 3, get ready to step up and win the moment. Your evening is full of moments. Win them. 4, adjust and adapt. You're not VP of anything at home. So adjust. It's different. It's a different environment, different domain. Be awesome at home. Number 5, your R's and E for your family. Make a difference. What are they experiencing you? Your attitude, your action, and your words. And they feel it, see it, and hear it. Be awesome. Number 6, there's skills you need to build for home. Go build them. Go be great. So I hope this is meaningful. If you want to follow, that's Twitter, and I'm on LinkedIn, and that's our website. Was this helpful, folks? Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you.